Okay, so let's talk about a shooting in Washington, D.C. On its face, any shooting is alarming, but this one, happening practically in the shadow of the White House, wasn't just another crime story. No, it quickly became the flashpoint for a huge national debate, and we're about to unpack exactly why.
First off, you have to understand the location. This attack went down less than a mile from the White House. I mean, think about that. That proximity, that closeness to the center of American power, that alone sent absolute shockwaves through the Capitol's entire security world.
But here's the twist. This is the detail that changes everything. The people who were shot weren't DC police. They weren't Secret Service. They were members of the National Guard, and that single fact blows the lid off a much deeper, much more controversial story.
So, what exactly happened? Let's break it down and start with the facts, just as they came in from the scene.
The human cost was immediate and, well, just awful. We learned that 2 members of the National Guard were in critical condition. A statement from then-President Trump also confirmed that the suspected shooter was critically injured as well.
And to give you a sense of just how dire this was, a reporter from Al Arabiya, who was right there on the scene, they described seeing a photo of one of the Guard members with a gunshot wound to the head. It's a graphic detail for sure, but it really underscores just how life-threatening the situation was.
In the moments right after the shooting, the scene was pure chaos. Eyewitnesses talked about a security lockdown that was both incredibly fast and unbelievably tense.
The security response was pretty much textbook. First, a cordon goes up, pushing back the media, pushing back anyone just trying to see what's going on. Then, get this, people inside a nearby cafe were told to stay put, basically trapping them inside. And then, an FBI agent walks right into that cafe, you got to assume, to start interviewing any potential witnesses.
And this is the moment. This is where the whole thing explodes from a local crime story into something much, much bigger. Because the identity of those victims, it changed the entire game. In fact, one analyst right there on the ground called the attack a slap in the face to the whole idea of using the National Guard to secure the Capitol. And wow, those words were like a match on gasoline. They instantly ignited a fierce political firestorm.
And that gets us right to the heart of the matter. This whole brewing controversy over using the National Guard for domestic law enforcement in the first place. The debate really boils down to 2 opposing arguments. On one hand, you had the official justification from the Trump administration, which was that the Guard was essential to restore security. But on the other hand, critics were pushing back hard, arguing, hold on, these soldiers are trained for war zones, not for dealing with crime on city streets.
And the critics' concerns were really specific. They argued that Guard members just don't have the de-escalation training for urban crime. That's simply not their job. They also pointed to a huge danger, the risk of a criminal trying to snatch a military-grade rifle in a public space. For them, the consensus was clear. Let the police, the FBI, and the Secret Service handle this.
So as you can imagine, the political fallout was immediate and it was intense. You have to understand the whole context, and the timing of this attack couldn't have been more sensitive.
The political framing was immediate and harsh. In his first comments, then-President Trump reportedly described the attacker as an animal. That kind of language signals that this wasn't going to be treated as just a crime, but as a direct assault on his security policy.
And the timing just amplified everything. This happened on Thanksgiving Eve, a period of massive travel and already heightened alert. The Guard's deployment itself was already a major election issue. And it all went down right after President Trump had specifically pushed for that deployment to project an image of strength in the Capitol.
The real-world consequences spread far beyond just the crime scene. As part of that security lockdown, flights were actually grounded for a time at nearby Reagan National Airport. I mean, that's a huge disruption, causing chaos during one of the busiest travel times of the year. And so this leaves us with the central, unanswered question that was just hanging over the entire investigation. Was this a random act of violence, where these Guard members were tragically in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or was this a deliberate, targeted attack aimed specifically at the uniform symbols of a very controversial federal policy? That's the question that authorities and really the entire nation were left to grapple with.